When you think about moving to Canada, it's common to visualize a land of good space, endless opportunities, friendly people, and a weather like nowhere else. That sounds like where anyone would want to be. But unfortunately, that's not the case with Canada. The truth is, life in Canada has changed a lot over the last few years. And while it is still a beautiful country to explore, moving there permanently is a totally different story, which is why no one wants to live in Canada anymore. Hence, the mass exodus recorded in recent times. The question is, what is happening in Canada and why are people avoiding the country? Before we continue, do like and subscribe to this channel. Since the turn of the decade, Canada has made immigration one of its major weapons to tackle its big challenge of an aging and slowing population. This not only drove Canada's population up at its fastest clip in more than 6 decades, it also helped fuel economic growth. But now a reversal of the population growth trend is gradually taking hold. In the first 6 months of 2023, some 42,000 individuals left Canada, adding to 93,818 people who left in 2022 and the 85,927 others who left in 2021. While that is only a fraction of the hundreds of thousands who came to the country over the same period, yet the steady rise in immigration is very questionable, because for a nation built on immigrants, a rising trend of people leaving risks undermining one of the government's major policies, which granted permanent residency to a record 2.5 million people in just 8 years. One of the reasons people have been leaving Canada in droves is the high cost of living. Over the years, Canada has become expensive for both Canadians and newcomers alike. For newcomers especially, this means spending more time saving and establishing a realistic budget before arriving in Canada, whether it is for work, to study, or as a permanent resident. Also, key indicators have shown that while some inflation is slowing, the cost of living remains high in Canada and is likely to remain so for a while. Earlier in 2023, the Bank of Canada projected that Canada would reach the targeted 2% level of inflation by the end of the year. However, stronger spending than expected has kept inflation high, and the bank has responded by keeping interest rates high to curb the spending. By July 2023, inflation was already up 3.3%. It will take time for Canada's economy to feel the full impact of higher interest rates. Currently, Canada's overnight interest rate stands at 5%, the highest it has been since 2001. Also, the most recent Consumer Price Index report from Statistics Canada shows an 8.5% increase for July compared to last year for groceries. In fact, prices are so high that a recent Statistics Canada report noted that higher prices are reducing the amount of food that consumers buy at stores. It says that as of early 2023, household food volumes have declined in 6 of the past 8 quarters. Additionally, food banks throughout Canada are reporting record levels of demand. Also, the price of fresh fruit rose by 4.1% in July 2023 compared to the previous year. This shows how difficult survival has become in Canada. Another reason people have been leaving Canada is the unbelievable cost of housing. Both natives and immigrants in Canada have made many complaints about affordability as the prices of homes continue to rise and has made home ownership unattainable. This has also been worsened by a low supply of affordable housing. Currently, the average home price in Canada is over $650,000, and it keeps increasing every year. Interestingly, till now, no immediate solution was brought forward, but the federal government has been taking measures to increase housing affordability, such as the first-time homebuyers incentive and establishing a national housing strategy. So, to reduce the cost of housing, many people in Canada are turning to shared accommodations. In fact, a census report released in July 2022 showed that households composed of roommates, that is, 2 or more people living together, among which none are part of a census family, are the fastest growing household type. It was also discovered that the number of respondents living in these arrangements increased by 54% between 2001 and 2021. While these are often in rental situations, co-ownership, that is, buying a house with a trusted friend, is becoming rampant. The poor healthcare services in the nation has also been a reason to flee. In fact, anyone sitting in a hospital waiting room for hours on end, hoping for an ambulance that may never come, or watching their local hospital close the emergency ward may wonder how Canadian healthcare could ever get worse than that. This is because in this current age, with physician shortages and burnt-out nurses, Canada's healthcare system is not left behind. And while some people hope Canada can find its way out of the problem, a new report finds that Canada is already one of the most expensive healthcare systems in the world. Of the 30 countries with universal insurance coverage, Canada ranked as the highest spender on healthcare as a share of its economy and 8th highest on a per-person basis. But despite this spending, Canada's performance was middling to poor. This is because the money spent on healthcare dollars simply wasn't translating into resources and timely care. While the unnecessary spending in the health sector is bad, the crisis caused by Canada's aging population could cause deeper disruptions. There's been a massive and growing backlog of medical services, staff burnout and shortages, and overall strain on Canada's health sector. While these challenges are serious, Canada's aging population remains a major healthcare problem that threatens the long-term stability of public healthcare. In fact, approximately 75 to 80% of old people have one or more chronic conditions. And although the fact that the population in Canada is aging is well known, the conversation has lacked urgency among policymakers. The truth is, Canada's healthcare system was not built to meet the challenges of an aging population. It was established to deal largely with acute, episodic care for a relatively young population. But today, Canada still struggles to properly care for patients, many of whom are elderly, managing complex and ongoing health issues. So why does population aging matter for the future of Canadian healthcare? The short answer is a disproportionate amount of the public healthcare usage occurs during the older years. So with a growing number of older Canadians, the demands on healthcare will intensify. So if you believe that the system operates suboptimally today, when 19% of the population is age 65 and over, imagine how things will be in 20 years if substantial change is not made to how healthcare is delivered now. Also, it has been discovered that onward migration, that is the process whereby someone moves on from a country they immigrated to and settles again elsewhere, has steadily increased since the 1980s. Among people who arrived in the 80s, the average cumulative onward migration rate was 18%. This rose to 21% among people granted permanent residence in the first half of the 1990s. This was particularly terrible because Canada's future prosperity depends on immigration, because it leads to GDP growth, improves the worker to retiree ratio, and eases labor shortages that add to inflation. And the benefits of immigration are realized over the time that immigrants spend in Canada. That is, the longer they stay, the more they contribute to its development. But the problem is they're not staying long enough to add any benefit. It was also discovered that immigrants to Canada are most likely to migrate again 4 to 7 years after arriving, suggesting that positive early experiences may be key to enticing them to stay. So the federal government is urged to make retaining newcomers a top priority, because immigrants who thrive are more likely to stay. There is no doubt that for Canada to meet its immigration goals, the country must not only attract newcomers but also retain them. Yet, few attempts have been made to evaluate Canada's immigration retention rate, even though retention should be a key performance indicator for Canada's immigration strategy, given the central role that immigration is meant to play in supporting population and economic growth. The dream of making it big in Canada is turning into a battle for survival for many immigrants due to the high cost of living and rental shortages, as rising immigration numbers show that newcomers are being forced to turn their back on a country that they chose to make their adopted home. That's it in today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more exciting content. Where money matters, we'll see you on the next one.